What does irony mean? It's like rain on your wedding day. It's like 10,000 spoons when all you need is a knife. I'm joking. These are not irony. Irony can be a bit difficult to define. First of all, there's multiple kinds of irony that are distinctly different. They can overlap as well, so we just call it all irony. But when understood and used correctly, irony can infuse your story with so much emotions. Everything from fear to anticipation to suspense to humor. When you have a story that has a lot of built-in irony, it really makes your scenes and your dialogue so much more interesting. So let's dive right in. What is irony? This is the Oxford definition of irony: a state of affairs or event that seems deliberately contrary to what one would expect. Irony is not just something bad or unlucky happening. It's the complete opposite of what you would expect. The word opposite being key here. When you think of irony, you gotta think opposites. A police station gets robbed. A fire station that burns down. That's ironic. It's not just different from what you would expect, it's the exact opposite. Sometimes irony could be amusing or funny, but other times it could be sad and tragic. Think of Beethoven, the musician who goes deaf. That's irony. In drama, there's 3 types of irony that is most often used. That is situational irony, dramatic irony, and verbal irony. So I'm gonna break down these 3 ironies. The first is situational. This is the irony that is, I think, closest to the original definition. It is the opposite of what you would expect to happen. That's what happens. So let's take a look at some examples. What makes for a better story? The MIT student who becomes a genius mathematician, or the janitor that works at MIT who becomes a genius mathematician. And that's Good Will Hunting. Another example, what makes for a better story? The super charming social person who creates a giant social media company, or the isolated nerd loner who has very little friends and betrays all of them to create this giant social media company and connect everyone. The Social Network. Or how about a young, strong male who joins the army and becomes a warrior, or the small, skinny female who disguises herself as a man to join the army and become a warrior. Mulan. You see where I'm getting at here? Whether it be the characters or the situation that they're in, try to write them in a way that breaks people's expectations. You want these kind of opposite situations where something happens to the character where you least expect it to happen. So that was situational irony. The next irony is probably the most widely used irony in drama, and that is dramatic irony. And this is simply when the audience knows something the characters don't. Horror movies are built entirely off dramatic irony. When I think of a movie like Jaws, classic movie, all those scenes that the people are on their boat or swimming in the water, unaware that there's a killer nearby. We get glimpses of the shark fin, and we hear that minor second bass, doom, 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 and the characters, they're unaware, okay? That is dramatic irony. Almost all horror films use dramatic irony. When you think of all the innocent bystanders just going about their business, meanwhile we get glimpses of a killer nearby and they're unaware, okay? All that is dramatic irony. Another place where dramatic irony is used a lot is betrayal plots. Think of the movie The Matrix. When Cypher is betraying Morpheus and Neo, There's a scene where we're shown that he's making a deal with the agents. And every moment after that, there's a lot of suspense and anticipation because you know it's coming. This is what makes dramatic irony so engaging to watch, is that you know something, the characters don't, and you know the truth will come out eventually, and it's gonna make for a great moment. For example, in the movie Godfather, when Michael kills Sollozzo and McCluskey in the restaurant, they're going into a restaurant and they're getting patted down before they go in, but Michael goes to a bathroom to retrieve a gun that's hidden behind the toilet. And when he comes back to the table, we know he has a gun and he's about to kill these dudes. And it creates so much anticipation and suspense. And the acting is great. This is dramatic irony. When we know something that the other characters in the scene may not know. The next big kind of irony you're going to see a lot in drama is verbal irony. And this is simply when the characters say something that contrasts sharply with the reality of the situation. There's different kinds of verbal irony. Okay, sarcasm, that's verbal irony. In Star Wars, when they're about to face danger, they say the quote, "This is where the fun begins." Okay, that's sarcasm, that is verbal irony. In the movie Friday After Next, when Ice Cube and Day-Day, they work as top flight security guards, super clown job that everybody ridicules them, but Day-Day's like super serious about it. He's like, "You see this on my shirt? Top flight security? I'd die for this shit." Remember, verbal irony is when the character says something that contrasts with the reality of the situation. There's different kinds of verbal irony that I'm not gonna get into, okay? Overstatement, understatement, blah, blah, blah. But the two main flavors of verbal irony is when the characters say something contrary out of ignorance, or when the characters say something that's contrary, but it's with an intention to mislead other characters. So those are the three main types of irony that you're gonna see in film and movies, but there's other kinds of ironies. There is tragic irony. This is the same thing as the situational irony, when the opposite of what you expect to happens, but with tragic consequences. So think of the movie Star Wars, Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. Anakin Skywalker, whose sole job is to defeat the dark side of the Force, he has visions of his wife dying in childbirth. So he taps into the dark side to try to save her life, only to realize that it was him turning to the dark side that actually killed her. So that is tragic irony. The exact opposite of what you expected to happen happens, but with tragic consequences. Think of the movie Psycho. The girl who steals money from her boss and she escapes town and stays at this motel. And right when she has a change of heart and decides to go back and return the money, Norman Bates murders her. And that was a very surprise moment because that was the main character, and Hitchcock just murders her halfway through the movie, right after she decides to do something good. Very unexpected and shocking moment. And this is tragic irony. Another kind of irony which I love is structural irony. And this is when everybody knows something that our main character does not. When the perspective of the protagonist is not in line with reality. For example, The Truman Show. Jim Carrey, who is in a real-life reality show and doesn't know it, but everybody else does, that is structural irony. Another example is the movie Downfall. Amazing German film about the last days of the Nazi regime. Probably the greatest impersonation of Adolf Hitler you're ever going to see. And we all know that famous meme when Hitler finds out about something. But that movie, that is structural irony. Everybody knows that they're being defeated, but Hitler is so delusional that he believes that, they could win, and he's moving all these invisible units on a map. It's just a great, great movie. But that is structural irony, okay? When everybody knows something that the main character does not. The next irony I want to talk about is cosmic irony. And this is when a divine entity or a supernatural force interferes to create a ironic situation. This type of story usually comes in a certain style. A person gets everything they ever wanted, usually by some divine entity, only to find out it's nothing like what they expected. For example, Aladdin. A poor street rat who falls in love with the princess, finds a magic lamp, gets 3 wishes, turns himself into a prince, but the experience is nothing like what he expected. Other stories like this, Bruce Almighty, a man gets godlike powers only to find out it's nothing like what he expected. The Adam Sandler movie, Click. Adam Sandler gets a magic remote control that can stop and forward time. And he finds out it's nothing like what he expected. Or sometimes it can go the other way. For example, Liar Liar. Jim Carrey's character, he gets a curse where he can't tell a lie. And he's a lawyer, so he needs to lie as his job. So it creates a lot of funny and ironic moments. There's usually a lot of moral lessons involved in these kind of stories, but yes, that is cosmic irony. The last irony I want to talk about is poetic irony. And this is when everything works out perfectly, as it's meant to be. The good is rewarded and the evil is punished. That's it. A great example of this is Inglourious Basterds. The last scene where all the Nazis are burned and massacred in this movie theater and Adolf Hitler is actually killed. This was actually surprising because as you're watching the movie, they're trying to get to Hitler and kill him, but we all know Hitler didn't die then. But Tarantino doesn't give a okay? He's like, I'm gonna kill Hitler because Hitler deserved to die. And it actually made for a shocking and surprise ending because nobody expected Hitler to die because that's not what happens in real life. Justice is served. The wicked is punished and the good rewarded. So that is the video. I hope after watching this, you have a better understanding of what irony is and how it's used to enhance our storytelling. I got more content coming, so stay tuned, like, subscribe, and go watch some more videos.